Hello everyone, I'm Sylvia from Fairlight Tarot. Welcome to my channel. Today I am going to do another VR and it's called Top 10 Curiosity Decks, and it's a VR to Candy, Soul and Soil. The meaning of this VR is to show the decks that I will put in my Curiosities cabinet if I had one. The first deck that I want to show you today is the Tarot Bot, and it's been created by Michael Murdoch. You can find him at designs.com. Now this deck came to my collection by chance. I was just looking at the Facebook groups I'm part, and we all trade, swap or sell tarot decks, and sometimes you can find some really good options there. So I saw this and I had no idea what it was. I had never seen it before. So I googled it online and I found the creator's website, and I checked and I just loved all the cards, and I thought I really must have this deck because it looks whimsical, quirky and funny at the same time, but it's also a really good RWS clone. And so here I am. So it comes with a small folded guidebook. As you can see, it's very easy to read. It follows the RWS system, so it is quite, it's not a difficult deck. It doesn't need a guidebook bigger than this, I must say. As you can see, it's got the typo gilding I'm not a fan of, but you know, to be honest, it really gives that kind of shiny look to this deck. And you can find the gold foil on the backs as well. There you go. I think it's easier to show it this way. So it makes sense, you know, in this case it would not have been a good combination to have this shiny gold in the backs and then a matte gold gilding on the edges. So fair enough. And I have been using this deck quite a fair bit. As you can see, it's not damaged. The gilding held up pretty well, so I'm quite happy about it. It doesn't hurt my fingers. Not all shiny, glossy gold gildings are bad. Now, this deck comes with additional cards, but let's just have a look. So as you can see, the protagonist of this deck is a very quirky robot, and he's got a very quirky robot dog with him. We just follow his travel, his journey into this kind of a post-apocalyptic world in which, you know, everything has gone to dust, and the land is burnt by the sun. The only creatures remaining are indeed, well, robotic creatures really, although if you see the expressions on them, they look alive. They look like they actually have a soul. It's beautiful because they express feelings. These robots are kind of like, I've been talking about the an Italian tarot by Il Meneghello, which follows the travels of a painter's dummy. And the way the artwork has been done reflects I think it reflects a lot the emotions of the dummy, as if it were a person, as if it were alive. I believe this deck shows exactly the same. I'm sorry about the glare. It's a very glossy, as you can see, it's a very glossy kind of cardstock. Also not my favorite. However, because the colors are so vibrant, I'm actually not unhappy about the fact that it's a glossy cardstock, because I'm thinking, well, you know, when, for example, with a linen cardstock or a matte cardstock, you don't have this kind of a vibrancy in the colors and the saturation, and it would have been, yeah, I would have liked it as anyway, but I think I prefer it this way. So I'm just gonna, you know, put up with the fact that it's a bit catching the light. This death is glorious. So we're gonna have 10 decks or 11 as usual today, so I'm not gonna spend too long, but I wanted to say that it comes with additional cards. So after the World, we've got the Elder, the Anarchist, the Conman, that's beautiful, the Pit, and that's it. And then we start with the usual. As you can see, it's very easy to read, very RWS. Look at this 10 of Wands. So it's a beautiful deck. I have had really good readings. Look at this 8 of Cups. Really good readings with this deck. It stands on its own. I don't have, or I don't feel like I have to pair it up with an oracle deck to get deeper, which is strange because I generally love doing that. But this deck doesn't call for it. It's got so much of a storytelling attitude that you don't really need an oracle deck. Although, if you guys have any suggestions on what oracle deck I could pair up with this one, I'm all ears, because I always like to try new combinations. So yeah, beautiful. This is the Tarot Bot by Michael Murdoch. The next deck I would like to talk about is the Shadow Myth. So this is called Shadow Myth Story Deck Preservation and Shadow Myth Story Deck Darkness. Now these decks are not necessarily just, they're not tarot, they're not oracle decks. As you can see, they have no numbers, no words on them. However, they do come with some instructions, I would say, just to show you one. So how to use it, there's a link to a website, to a PDF document. It's actually quite good and very extensive. It can be used as a kind of a D&D or role-playing games kind of deck. It's very interesting. It can also be used as an oracle reader, and that's what I generally do. So I let my intuition guide me towards the pairing of these two decks with, for example, the Murder of Crows deck or the Tarot Z or Tarot V by Alejandro Colucci. And other darker kind of decks. I think these two decks are really intense, so you know, viewer discretion, obviously. There's nothing pornographic, for example, but they are quite, as you can see from the very first image, they are very dark. Okay, so obviously they go well in a cabinet of curiosities, because you know, that is, to me, this is the essence of darkness, and that's the way I like to face darkness, the way I see it. And sometimes I like the fact that not all the cards are actually dark. There's some kind of, you know, lighter kind of message in some of them. There's a couple of options or editions of this deck. I've got the Preservation and the Darkness, but there's another edition, apologies, I don't actually remember the name, and it's got a much lighter kind of theme. The artwork is amazing. It's the stuff on Nightmare. But sometimes you need that. You need to get in touch with your darker self. That's what I believe, or at least that's what I need to do. And so that's how I use it. I pair it up with, you know, darker decks in the darker months. And look at this figure. It could be a Fool card, but it's a kind of a regret of the Fool for not having taken that leap of faith. This could be the day after, for example. Some of the cards are very straight shooters, I would say, quite easy to interpret. For example, this one, Wisdom of the Depth of the very deep kind of introspection. Some others are even, for example, this one is kind of a difficult one even to understand what the refiguration is. Fair enough. I mean, we've all seen the Rorschach test, haven't we? So it also depends on our interpretation of the cards. And it's always, I think it's very beautiful because it gives me the opportunity to work on how I see myself in different stages of when I use this deck, or I feel called to use this deck. So this is the Shadow Myth Story Deck, Preservation and Darkness. The next deck is another Il Meneghello deck. I know I show a lot of Il Meneghello decks, and trust me, I don't live in Milan, I don't even live in Italy anymore. So it is as difficult for me to get a hold of them as it is for the rest of the world, bar Italy. I know that they ship globally. I'm very thankful for that. And I know that they use, I think they use DHL, they use DHL within Italy, but I think that they use DHL for the rest of the world as well. Therefore, you have tracking, you know, that you're always on top of your shipment. However, it is rather expensive. So these ones are all handmade, and they hand cut. They are hand cut as well. Now this one, the title of this one is 22 Corals in 22 Arcanas. This one is also created by Maestro Osvaldo Menegazzi. And my copy is number 43 of 250. It was produced in 2019, but I do believe that they still have a fair bit in stock. I follow their Instagram page, and I still saw this tarot in one of their tables in their shops. So if you want it, I think it's still possible to get a copy of this. Now the reason why it's in this VR is because, well, it's only 22 major arcanas, but they're all corals. But the artist has found a way to combine the magnificence of the corals with the intrinsic meaning of the cards, of each and every card. So I think it's a very quirky kind of deck. The Lovers. The colors are amazing. The quality of its artistic paper. It's a I would say it's a collector's only kind of deck because of the cost and also because of the quality of the deck. I do not think that if you use it a lot, it was you know, it will last very long because of this kind of papery, kind of cardboardy kind of cardstock. But as a collector, I really appreciate the opportunity to have this kind of decks in my collection, because I believe that they respond to a certain need. I don't always buy a deck because I want to read with it. And I don't know if it's the same for you guys. I would love to hear what you think in the comments below. Sometimes we just buy a deck because it is art. It is a piece of art, and Osvaldo Menegazzi is an artist, and anything that he has done I will always appreciate, even though I might not read with it, because he combined this artistic soul that he had with the tarot, and I really enjoy that. Look at this world. So that's the 22 Corals in 22 Arcanas by Osvaldo Menegazzi. The next deck is the famous Yokai Yochi by Bubo Plague. And I'm so glad that I have this deck. I probably said that before, in my collection, because it's just an amazing deck. First of all, the quality, can we talk about that? It's just fantastic. I mean, here, the swooshing sound of these cards, it's a soft matte linen finish. Yes, the usual problem with the gilding, but honestly, it's really good quality, so I'm not complaining. And the backs are just amazing. Now, I have a soft spot for this kind of decks. Japanese lore is a big part in my life. I simply love reading stories about Japanese myths and legends, but also watching, you know, any kind of movies, reading any kind of comic books, and it's just so amazing. And you know, the funny thing is that being Italian, I can also reconnect. I can also recognize, let's say, part of these myths as very similar to legends that are part of my culture, my Italian culture, which is very strange because Japan and Italy are very far away, but they're also culturally very distinct countries. And yet I can assure you that there's a lot of similarities. This beautiful Lover's card. And I wanted to show this deck in combination with a couple of books that I got from Tarot publication. So the Yokai Attack, the Japanese Monster Survival Guide, and the Yurei Attack, Japanese Ghost Survival Guide. Now, I went to a couple of lectures by Matt Alt, and I really admire the work that has been done while gathering all the research for these books. These books are amazing. They're super funny. They obviously there's a lot of work behind it, so you can it's guaranteed that the information in these books is 100% correct. And they talk about kitsune, for example. We all know kitsune is the fox, right? And you know, it gives you all sorts of information. It's incredible. And I found that reading with this tarot, thanks to the fact that, you know, you can actually refer the cards to, you can find the corresponding yokai or yurei in these two books. It makes it so much more interesting, because unfortunately the booklet that comes with this tarot is very, very basic, super duper basic. So it's got the name of the legend, let's say the yokai, but it doesn't explain much of what it is. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but you see it's only a couple of lines. So I would have loved to have something more extensive on this, and thanks to these two books I actually have it. So this is the Yokai Yochi Tarot by Woo Plague. The next deck belongs to the Cabinet of Curiosity because it's got a lot of bones. It's the Energy Archaeology Oracle deck. Now this deck, I've hesitated a lot before purchasing this deck, and then at the end I did. And by the way, shout out to the Boutique London, so great, you guys. The shipping was so quick. I'm so delighted because I think you guys were the last ones that I could find, at least online, that still had this deck in stock and that were also willing to ship to Australia. So thank you so much for being, you know, so kind as to ship to this forsaken island at the other end of the world without charging me $80 for shipping. And it was so quick as well. I think it took something like 8 working days. So I'm very grateful to you guys. So this deck, the reason why it's here is because it's got a lot of bones. And the reason behind, let's say the concept behind this deck is that we carry trauma in our bones. Our bones are the receptive part of our history as a human being. Any kind of impact that we've had, injury, and I'm talking not just anything that is related to the biological part of ourselves, so our body as in the physical vessel that we inhabit, but also the soul. So any kind of trauma that has had an impact in our psyche is stored in our bones. Our aches and pains, guys, that's all there is. It's not just because when we fell and for example, in 2004, was it? Yeah, 2004, I had a surfing accident and I broke my pelvis. I fractured shattered, really. And I couldn't walk. I was in rehab for 12 months. It was very hard. I'm still in a lot of pain. I'm working on it. Obviously, it's kind of a daily kind of process for me. And I'm so very lucky because it could have gone much worse. So I'm not complaining. What I notice from this deck is that it makes me very emotional in the sense that it seems to know me. Seriously. Whenever I pull a card just for myself, I use it for clients as well. I do a lot of path working with this deck in combination with the Death Doula and the Insomnia Tarot. Thanks to actually the first one that gave me the idea was Annette from Project Refine Life. She's also using these these 3 decks in a combo. The way I use it as well is to define where the pain can be, and then once you can identify the spot, you can actually start working on it. And I'm not kidding, I'm not even kidding. When I pull a card for myself, I always pull the spinal cord, or for example the pubis, you know, or the scapula. So it's all the bones in my body that have suffered from that accident, and the fact that it wasn't just, it was a loss of faith that I had in my skills on the ocean. Of course, when something like that happens, you think that you can't do it ever again. It's like falling off a horse and then not being able to mount it anymore. Why? Because you're so scared that it's going to happen again and you just don't face your fears. This deck will help you through that. It's apart from the fact that it's really beautiful as well, as you can see, but it's a healing kind of deck. I highly recommend it for anyone who's had traumas of any kind. So this is the Energy Archaeology Oracle deck. And by the way, sorry, it's by Ashley Stinson and it's been illustrated by Kelly Finnan. The next deck is the Raincoast Tarot by Christopher James. This deck is so quirky. It should be on the first shelf of my cabinet of curiosity if I had one. It is just unbelievable. By the way, shout out to them as well because they're from Canada. They also ship to Australia. Not just that, but they actually ship for free. I think they ship for free anywhere in the world, so I was so pleased to see that. Thank you for that. It doesn't happen very often to us in Australia that someone is willing to ship to us for free. So yay for you. Now the reason why it's here is just it's full of so many whimsical characters. I mean, seriously, where do they come from? It's unbelievable. Look at this 2 of Pentacles. You've got, I think this is some kind of a ventriloquist because there's a circus there, and there's the Baron Samedi looks like to me, but maybe not. It's a priest, clearly, but it's a skeleton as well. And there's a dog with a Z cap on top. It's amazing. Seriously, there are small details pretty much in any card. Count Dracula kind of feel. Small details in any card that makes you think. It is a storyteller type of deck. You can just look at one card and talk for hours, which I'm not going to do because I don't want to bore everyone. There's so much in all these cards. Some cards are actually a bit too busy, I think, personally. Because, okay, the 6 of Pentacles is supposed to be the giving and the receiving, the exchange of communication, the charity. I don't necessarily get that from this image. I see a scarecrow, for example. I see a person in a canoe trying to get away, looking back over their shoulder, but at the same time there's a small horse going up the stairs, I think, and but it is so much fun. I mean, for the most part, these cards are very easy to interpret. It's just, you know, the magician, for example, a typical magician, I would say, but he's here. You guys got, it looks like waves, and it's got crows heads coming out of them, and okay, well, yeah, that makes sense for sure. And then it's got small kind of figurines in there. There's so much. I can spend hours just looking at the cards of this deck. It's just absolutely amazing. Some cards are simple, thank you, because your eyes need some rest every now and then. But it's beautiful. I love it. It's quirky. It's so quirky. It's weird. It's weird. Like there's a skeleton on the Emperor's beard. Why? You know, and it is just, it's got a bit of a mix of symbols, traditional symbols of the RWS, and then it also does its own thing. So this is the Raincoast Tarot by Christoph James. The next deck that I'm going to show you is the Tarot of the Cat People by Karen Kuykendall, I think is pronounced, but I could be wrong. So if I am, sorry about that. This is actually an old deck. It's published by US Games. My edition is fairly recent. It's either, let me just see if I can, because I don't want to say something stupid. So it was, there you go, 1985. So this is a deck from the 80s, and I can show you why. So the premises of this deck are that this is a planet, you know, populated by people who, look at the backs. The backs are just amazing. Look at that. Reversible, by the way, which is always appreciated if you read reversals. So in this planet, people worship cats. Okay, and you can see there's always a cat in every card, sometimes toy, super cute, but also kind of impressive in their magnificence. Like, it's not just the cute kind of Hello Kitty, which I like, by the way, nothing against it. But what I mean is that there's so much more than that. So cats are seen as, you know, the owners of, the rulers of this planet, of this world. And humans are just kindly allowed to live there together with the cats. And they're also there because they need to feed them and provide to every one of their needs, as they do in our world, of course. But the way there's this connection between the figures, the characters, the human characters, and the cat characters, it's just amazing. The color palette is fantastic. It's very, to me, it looks more like a 70s kind of art style. Of course, the 70s went on for the first part of the 80s, but I do believe that this deck took a while to be produced, let's say. So if it was published in 1985, there are chances that the initial kind of first draft of this deck would have been in the late 70s. And it's just amazing. I love every single card. It is definitely quirky, weird, eccentric to me. Look at that, and the Two of Cups with the sun, with the face of a cat. So it's here for a reason, and I think it's definitely not going to be relegated to you know, a lower shelf. It's top shelf of the cabinet for me. So this is the Tarot of the Cat People by Karen Kuykendall. The next deck we're going to have a look at today is the Stranger Beast, let's say, Tarot of the series Martin Mystere. Now, this is a Los Carabeo deck from the 90s. It's part of a very unique kind of collection that Los Carabao printed out in the 90s, and it was based on comic books that were popular back then. Now, as like Dylan Dog, which is one of my favorite, this one also is still in print, not the deck, but the comic book. So this is from 1992, and it's majors only. Now this one is based on this this character was an investigator, Martin Mystere. He is an investigator of the mysterious and the unique and the wild and the quirky. That's why this deck is here in this VR, because it looks at all kinds of really quirky creatures, let's say, and it reminds me, a lot of these remind me a lot of the Fantastic Beasts movies. This is for, I reckon, when this is such a very luxurious artist paper, and whenever I acquire a deck like this, I tend not to use it for reading purposes. It's just for my collection. I don't want to ruin it, not because it's not evocative or it doesn't give me the inspiration for reading the cards. It's just that it is very difficult to find, very hard to find, not very expensive. I only pay $40 for it, if you can believe it. $40 Australia, which is about $30 US. So it's much cheaper than some of my latest Los Carabao decks. Okay, but it was just very fortuitous that someone I know had it, and they graciously sold it to me. So I'm quite happy about that. But look at this death card, amazing. So definitely a quirky kind of deck for the Cabinet of Curiosity. It is the Tarot of the Curious Creatures, or the Fantastic Creatures, Strange Creatures. There you go. The next deck is called the Death Doula Oracle. It is a deck that has been published this year. It's an indie deck. Let's see if I can find the name, if I can read it. Theodore St. Studios. Okay, I don't know whether that's the name of the creator. I will look in the booklet, sorry about that. But in any case, this has been published this year, and it is an oracle deck. You've probably seen it in different channels. It's a very special deck. Again, images and words by Theodore Saint, edited by Hannah Ramon. Yes, there you go. So the reason why this deck is here is because I don't know whether you're familiar or not with the term or the job itself, Death Doula. Now, a lot of people are familiar with the job of birth doula. The birth doula is the one that helps a mother bring their children to life, so during birth. And a death doula, as you can imagine, is a person that helps someone who's in their last stages of life to pass on to the other dimension. Now, the concept itself would elicit some kind of sadness, but I actually find that the deck itself is very helpful, and not necessarily for end-of-life type of care. It is something very deep. But, sorry, let me just zoom out a little bit, because it's larger than other decks. So it's it looks at all this. This is a collage deck, as you can see. It's a kind of a photographic collage deck. Although I don't think it was one of the original ones. I think it has been realized on digitally, so on a computer. Some of the cards, so it's very evocative. Some of the cards, for example, this one is called Thrombosis. The keywords are very evocative, connected to the image. And this one is called Thrombosis, and it signifies blockage. Now, what the booklet says is that whenever this card comes up in a reading is because it identifies some kind of blockage, some kind of barrier, obstacle within yourself, and it stops you from expressing yourself. This is very important because I believe that regardless of the title, of the name, let's say, of this deck, anyone in any stage of life can experience this kind of blockage. And therefore, having the possibility to analyze the causes to the blockage, and therefore possibly reaching a way to overcome that, it's very important, and it gives us the possibility to explore the importance of our connections in life, of the role that we take in our own lives, and the role that we take in our own community. Why is there some kind of blockage? Why are we faced with solitude? Why are we invited to cleanse? Why are we experiencing fear? This card is amazing because I actually believe that choosing the black and white was an excellent way to portray fear visually. Conjure, magic, pleasure, dishonesty. So the void. So as I was saying before, I'm using this deck in some kind of a very specific readings for clients, and I use it in combination with the Energy Archaeology deck and the Somnia Tarot, and then I use a tarot deck to signify the situation. I use the Somnia Tarot to have an introspection on the effect of that situation into our own mind or in the mind of the client. The Energy Archaeology gives me a visual representation of the effect of the situation into the client's body. So where is the trauma concentrating? And then I use this deck, the Death Doula, that looks more into the aspect of the soul. So how is the soul being affected by the current situation? I then use another oracle. Generally, that varies a lot, not always the same. I like the Modern Nirvana because it gives, or the Amenti, for example, because it gives some kind of a life path working direction. But this one helps in that case as well. So this is the Death Doula, and it's by Theodore Saint. The next tarot we're going to see today is the Hayworth Tarot. I've seen this tarot the first time, I think it was on Danny's channel, Danny Mystic, and I was like, oh, I have to have this deck, it's just so cool. And then I found out that it's actually based on a podcast, and the podcast title is Welcome to Night Vale. Now, I don't know whether you're podcast users. I hope you are. It's just fantastic. And this particular podcast is very, very, very weird. And I'm talking about, I don't know, 100 different kinds of levels of weird. It's got all sorts of kind of stuff happening in it. I've listened to about probably a couple of dozen episodes. It went on for years. I think it's still publishing. And the deck, it's just so cool. I mean, it's the epitome of eccentricity and weirdness and, you know, odd, deeply odd. I mean, I don't know, it gives you all the kind of feelings you would expect from any kind of objects that you keep in a curiosity cabinet. Definitely. Even, you know, cards that are supposed to be positive, like the Three of Pentacles, you just look at it and you go, okay, that looks like the stuff nightmares are made of, which is perfectly fine, because sometimes I need a deck like this as well. It reads really well, really well. look at it, the Four of Pentacles. It's so stuck in the fact that it's been accumulating so much, isn't it? Is that he cannot, because his limbs, you see, his arms and his feet are sucked in these holes in the ground. It's like you're stuck in here because you've accumulated so much. You spent so much of your life accumulating things that, well, now you're stuck with them. So I really like this tarot. I know that there's a couple of cards that heard people going, they're kind of a trigger for me. Fair enough. I hope they don't come up. If they do, I'll just quickly move them to the bottom. There isn't any for me personally, but of course, there we go. But of course, you know, we're all different, and that's the beauty of life. I just love the way, there's also a couple of websites in which you can log in, and there's a link to an Excel spreadsheet that you can download, where it does give a possible interpretation of the cards as related to episodes of the podcast. And I have done that, and I have looked through that, and it's just incredibly quirky. So they have two versions of this tarot. This is the Hayworth Tarot, just Hayworth Tarot, and then there's an additional version which is called the Hayworth Tarot Welcome to Manlyvale edition, and I purchased that as well. It is only $20 US. Yes, I'm not kidding. It's only $20, and they also ship to Australia. Thank you so much. And they only charge me $9.50 to ship to Australia, which is actually cheaper than any domestic shipping in Australia. So thank you so very much for that, Jessica Hayworth. You're the coolest. So this is the Hayworth Tarot. So of course, because I cannot stop at 10 decks, I've got one additional one. And this one is just fresh new to my collection. It's just arrived this morning. I already had a look at it because I was really looking forward to this deck. It has not even been released in Australia yet. It has been released, I think, a couple of weeks ago in Europe. It's from Los Carabel, and it's the Symbolic Soul Tarot by Elisa Seitzinger. Again, always apologies if I don't pronounce the name correctly. I don't know. So the reason why this deck is here is, first of all, because symbolism and occultism to me are part of the cabinet of curiosity, and I think that this tarot deck is, well, it's called Symbolic Soul obviously, but it's so rich of symbolism. It's really mind-boggling. I have watched a couple of walkthroughs of this deck. Couldn't really see the cards, but also I have to say it is the kind of new kind of box, as you can see, two-part box that you can see from Los Carabel. There's a few others like that. One of the very first one they did this way was the Santa Muerte Tarot. It's different. It's matte. See? Matte. And it's got gold foil everywhere. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's not gilded, which is fine. I can edge it myself. It's not a problem. I'm thinking I might be edging it in a bit of a maybe either black, just to keep with the background, or some muted kind of eggshell, or really light brown or something like that. I don't know. In any case, this deck, the quality of this deck, if this is an example of what Los Carabel is going to do in the future, oh my goodness, thank you so much. It's amazing. It's a bit stiff now because it's brand new, but it's matte. It's a very dry, how can I explain that? It's a crisp kind of matte. The gold foil is on every card. They really did not spare any foil by producing this. It's just gorgeous. Now the symbols are very quirky. Most of the cards, as you can see, are it's just a preview in the sense that I haven't really done any kind of a deep dive into this deck yet, but the reason why it's here, and let me jump to it straight away. Sorry, I say straight away, but then I look at the cards and I'm like, oh my goodness, they're so pretty. And it's not straight away at all, but I'll get there. There you go, found it. Okay, this is the Five of Pentacles. When I saw this card, and I had no idea, I promise you, but when I saw this card, I was like, hey, hang on a second, I know these figures, I know who they are. So I didn't remember the name, but then I went through the guidebook and I found it. These are called mamutones, and that's a name that it comes from the lore of Sardinia. Sardinia is an island off the coast of Tuscany in Italy, and they have this folklore, this urban legend or myth that these figures come whenever there's a time of carnival, and they are, you know, dressed in this very odd kind of furs, and they have all these bells around them. They need to make noise in order to alert people that they're coming. And then it's a pity that she hasn't swapped around these two masks, because this is the lesser known kind of mask that they use. This is the more well-known, more popular kind of mask that they use, and it's a wooden, very heavy kind of mask. And it's just amazing. There's all these kind of legends related to mamutones in Sardinia. So when I saw this, I went to the booklet and I went to the Five of Pentacles, both in the Italian and the English edition of the booklet, and I was a bit disappointed, because I thought, hang on a second, it doesn't say anything specific here. That's such a pity, because, you know, it should say something, why was it chosen and everything. You see, Five of Pentacles, it only talks about the meaning of the card. But then, I, you know, just flipping the pages, I went to behind the curtain. I'm like, oh, what's that? So basically, in this section, which is at the very end of, you know, all the explanation of the cards, it goes through all the very specific legends that are behind the choices of the cards, and this is just fantastic. I love this. I am so grateful that they started doing this. It's amazing. So if you go to the Five of Pentacles, there they are. The figures are mamutones, typical and strange figures appearing in Italian Sardinian carnival. Now, obviously, I would have loved to have a lot more than that, but at least now that I know the name, I can Google it, I can do some research about it, and I am very grateful for that. Now, one small thing that I want to say on a side note about Los Carabel booklets, especially for these kind of editions here, don't skip on the booklet, on the guidebook. I've seen so many people on different channels saying, for example, about Tarot Z, Tarot B, even in Santa Muerte, oh, I don't need the booklet, I can read RWS. Yeah, of course, no one says you can't. Absolutely fantastic. However, there are so many hidden gems, even in the Tarot Z and Tarot V, whether you think that they look like RWS clones or not, it doesn't matter. Have a look at the guidebook. And generally speaking, I would recommend always to have a look at the guidebooks, because they're very, very interesting. There might be some interpretations about the cards that is very specific to the author, and you wouldn't have thought about it. And so that's what I do. I've been reading for, you know, in a couple of months it will be my birthday, and it will be 35 years that I've been reading tarot. And I wouldn't need, I can read them without the booklets, but I do still read them, because it's just more of a connection that I can feel with the author. Why did they choose what they chose, you know, to represent a card? And so that was a side note. Sorry, it's just that the other day I was watching a video, and this lady was saying, oh, I'm probably not going to read it because it's RWS anyway. And I'm like, you're missing out on so much. So there you go. This was the Symbolic Soul Tarot from Eliza Seitzinger, published by, oh, and so sorry. It's also been illustrated by Barbara Moore, and the foreword is by Jonathan Batsey. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and please consider subscribing to my channel if you like this video. More to come, and see you again soon.